Hey, second Sunday in a row. Oh my gosh. So today's live is going to be serious and it's going to be informational. Okay. Um, it is going to be about politics and it is going to be about information that people need to know that they may not know. Whether or not you vote red or you vote blue. Okay. That may or may not change by the time I'm done. I'm not sure. Um, I want to say, first and foremost, regardless of what side you stand on, some of the things that I have seen today are extremely abhorrent and they are coming from the red side. I just did a video where, I've seen lots of videos today in the past just 15 minutes, and wherever Kamala's name is involved, the amount of misogyny that is coming out is absolutely disgusting, and some of it, as weird as it is coming from women. Um, I just did a video where there is a video of Biden and Kamala in front of a uh, NBA team, and he had gotten down on his knee in front of there to, I guess, fit into a photo. And Kamala says, "I'm not doing that." And the amount of comments underneath that were absolutely disgusting. I actually, out of the 40 comments that I managed to read, 30 of them insinuated that the only reason that she is in power is because that's how she got there, was on her knees. Now, if the presidential elect that was coming up was a male, you wouldn't see any of that. To suggest that a woman can only get to the top by performing sexual acts on a man is disgusting. And for the women that were commenting that, please surrender your woman card, because when you say things about that like that about another woman, number one, what does that say about you? But number two, what does that teach your children? Because if you are simply saying that a woman cannot get in power unless she is subservient to a man first, what are you teaching your daughters? Are you telling them that the only way they're ever going to make it in life is to make sure she gets on her knees first? That she cannot make it in this world, no matter how smart she is, no matter how motivated she is, no matter how much ambition she has, that the only way she is ever going to do anything is to fall subservient to a man to begin with. Okay. Um, that being said, there's been a lot of talk about, and in the blue circles, I don't think that the red circles quite understand what will happen if there's a red president. Whether, and obviously right now Trump is the red president. This is not going to be anti-Trump. This is going to be anti-Project 2025. If you are not aware of Project 2025, is if you are a woman, if you are a woman of childbearing age, if you are less than or at middle class, this will affect you. If you are LGBTQ, this will affect you. If you are low income in any type of way, shape, or form, this will affect you. If you have children, this will affect you. If you are not Christian, this will affect you. The only people that Project 2025 does not touch is straight, white, Christian males. Okay. Now we're going to go over Project 2025 today. Okay. This is a thing. Okay. It's written up. The manifesto's out there. It's about approximately 964 pages. I read a good portion of it. I've done videos on it before, and people need to realize how our lives will be affected if a Republican makes it to the office. The I'm so frustrated right now. Project 2025 will take place the day of presidency. The day. Okay, the day. We're going to go over. I do not have the manifesto, and it is a manifesto. It's a fucking terroristic act in front of me, but I do have Cliff Notes. So we are going to go over Project 2025 today. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about, to get you guys completely where we're at here, this is going to be one that is going to both sides are going to get inflamed over this, both the pro-life and the pro-choice. So we're going to hit that one first, and that is women's reproductive health. Okay. Project 2025's proponents maintain that life begins at conception. They say that the Department of Health and Human Services should return to being known as the Department of Life, as they nicknamed it in January 2020, voicing its pride in being part of the most pro-life administration in this country's history. Project 2025 says it would reposition department politics by explicitly rejecting the notion that abortion is healthcare, by restoring its mission statement under the Trump strategic plan and elsewhere to include furthering the health and well-being of all Americans from conception to natural death. In 2022, the Supreme Court ruled that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion, thereby leaving it to the states to create their own legislation on the matter, getting rid of Roe v. Wade. But Project 2025 encourages the next president to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support. They are working on those sorts of executive orders and regulations to roll back Biden's abortion policies and institutionalize the post-Dobbs environment. For example, the Reproductive Healthcare Access Task Force Biden created would be replaced by a dedicated pro-life agency that would use their authority to promote the life and health of women and their unborn children. This project opposes any initiatives that, in view, subsidize single parenthood. Project 2025 encourages the next administration to rescind some of the provisions of the Family Planning Services and Population Research Act of 1970, enacted as Title X of the Public Health Service Act, which offers reproductive health care services, and to require participating clinics to emphasize the importance of marriage to potential parents, therefore bastardizing the concept of single parenthood. They write in the project's manifesto that the Food and Drug Administration is ethically and legally obligated to revisit and withdraw initial approval of abortion pills. He also recommends that the Center of Disease Control and Prevention update its public messaging about the unsurpassed effectiveness of modern fertility awareness-based methods, contraceptions such as anything, and then also to have smartphone applications that track a woman's menstrual cycle, that they could require all women to have an app to prove that they are not pregnant. They say that they should require that every state report exactly how many abortions take place within its borders, at what gestational age of the child, for what reason, the mother's state of residence, and by what method. It seeks to restore Trump-era religious and moral exemptions to contraceptive requirements under the Affordable Care Act, including emergency contraception Plan B, which deems to be an abortion pill, to defund Planned Parenthood program, which is how a lot of women actually get just women care. Just women care, not even just abortions, but women care, by the way. To remove protection of medical records involving abortions from criminal investigations if the said owners cross state lines. According to her, Project 2025's policy recommendations constitute not restrictions, but rather medical safeguards for women. The Department of Justice section calls for enforcement of federal law against using the U.S. Postal Service for transportation of medicines that include abortion. It seeks to revise provisions of the Comstock Act of the 1870s that banned mail delivery of any instrument, substance, drug, medicine, or thing that could be used for an abortion. Congress and courts have since narrowed Comstock laws, allowing contraceptives to be delivered by mail. They aim to enforce the Comstock more rigorously at the national level to prohibit sending abortion pills and medical equipment used for abortions through the mail. The plan would allow criminal prosecution for senders and receivers of abortion pills. Project 2025 does not explicitly promote the prohibition of abortion, but some legal experts and abortion rights advocates said that adopting the project's plan would cut off access to medical equipment used in surgical abortions. He has not, and Trump has not committed to a federal prohibition on abortion, but has made sure to say that he could absolutely sign it and make it mandatory. Regarding the issue of preventing teenage pregnancy, Project 2025 advises that the federal government to depreciate what it considers promotion of abortion and high-risk sexual behaviors among adolescents. It also seeks to remove the role of Department of Health and Human Services in shaping sex education, arguing that this is tantamount to creating a monopoly. Okay, there's more. Hold on. We're going to go over each thing. Let's see. I want to go to the next one here. This one is going to affect a lot of you, and I don't even think you realize it. All right, let's see. We'll go over that one after that. Hold on. We're going to go over these in order of agitation for me. All right, let's see. Healthcare and public health. Project 2025 accuses Biden administration of undermining the traditional nuclear family and wants to reform the Department of Health and Human Services to promote this household structure. According to Project 2025, the federal government should prohibit Medicare from negotiating drug prices. That's large caps. Promote the Medicare Advantage program, which consists of private insurance plans, making you pay more money. Federal healthcare providers should deny gender-affirming care to transgender people and eliminate insurance coverage of the morning after pill as required by the Affordable Care Act. Project 2025 suggests a number of ways of cutting funding for Medicaid, such as caps on federal funding, limits on lifetime benefits per capita, and letting state governments impose stricter work requirements for beneficiaries of the program. Other proposals include limiting state use of provider taxes, eliminating pre-existing federal beneficiary protections and requirements, and increasing the eligibility determinations and asset test determinations to make it harder to enroll in, apply for, or renew your Medicaid, providing an option to turn Medicaid into a voucher program, and eliminating federal oversight of state Medicaid programs. Project 2025 aims to dramatically reform the National Institute of Health by making it easier to fire employees and to remove DEI programs. Conservatives consider the NIH corrupt and politically biased. Project 2025 accuses social media networks, directly naming Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, of jeopardizing young Americans' mental health and social ties by creating a form of addiction. Federal policy cannot allow this to continue. They will go after social media. For those of you who have or love people who are LGBTQ, Project 2025 attacks what it calls radical gender ideology and advocates that the government maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. To achieve this, it proposes ending same-sex marriage, removing protections against discrimination on the basis of sexual or gender identity, eliminating provisions pertaining to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, which it calls state-sanctioned racism, from federal legislation. Federal employees who have participated in these programs or any initiatives involving critical race theory will be fired. Public school teachers who want to use a transgender student's preferred pronouns would be required to obtain written permission from the student's legal guardian. Project 2025's backers also want to target the private sector by reversing the DEI revolution in labor policy in favor of a more race-neutral regulation. Project 2025 is part of a trend in intensifying backlash against DEI in the early 2020s. The White House Gender Policy Council would be disbanded. Government agencies would be forbidden from instituting quotas and collecting statistics on gender, race, or ethnicity. Project contributor Jonathan Berry explains the goal here is to move towards color blindness and to recognize that we need to have laws and policies that treat people like full human beings, not reducible to categories, especially when it comes to race. Race does not mean sexual identity. Obviously, they do not have the IQ to fathom this. The U.S. Census Bureau would be reformed according to conservative principles. Journalism. Project 2025 proposes reconsidering the accommodations given to journalists who are members of the White House Press Corps. This proposes defunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, such as PBS, a private nonprofit corporation that provides the funding for the public broadcasting system and the National Public Radio, as good policy and good politics. Law enforcement. In view of Project 2025, the Department of Justice has become a bloated bureaucracy with a critical core of personnel who are infatuated with the perpetuation of a radical liberal agenda and has forfeited the trust of the American people due to its role in the investigation of Trump Russia collusion. It therefore must be thoroughly reformed and closely overseen by the White House. The director of the FBI must be personally accountable to the president. A DOJ reformed Project 2025 recommendation would combat affirmative discrimination or anti-white racism, citing the Civil Acts right of 1964. Former Trump DOJ official Gene Hamilton argues that the advancing the interests of certain segments of American society comes at the expense of other Americans and nearly all cases violates longstanding federal law. Therefore, the DOJ's Civil Rights Division would prosecute all state and local governments, institutions of higher education, corporations, and any other private employers with DEI or affirmative action programs if you are LGBTQ or a person of color. Legal settlements called consent decrees between the DOJ and the local police departments would be curtailed. According to the Project 2025, if the responsibilities of the FBI and another federal agency, such as the DEA, overlap, the latter will take the lead, leaving the FBI to concentrate on other serious crimes and threats to national security. Project 2025 acknowledges that capital punishment is a sensitive matter, but nevertheless promotes it to deal with what it considers an ongoing crime wave, and for particularly heinous crimes such as P3DO, but you want to elect one, until the U.S. Congress legislates otherwise. Like Trump, Project 2025 believes that the District of Columbia is infested with crime and as such suggests the authorization of uniform division in the Secret Service to enforce the law outside the White House and the immediate surroundings. National security. Project 2025 would require the Pentagon to abolish DEI programs. This is repeated throughout this entire thing. Anything LGBTQ transgender related, you're done. You're done. You cannot be married. You cannot have children. You cannot adopt. You cannot marry. You cannot anything. Okay. They reinstate this numerous times throughout this document. Immediately reinstate all service members discharged for not getting vaccinated against COVID-19. The United States Armed Forces would not be authorized to take climate change into account in evaluating national security threats. Project 2025 identifies China as the leading threat to U.S. national security. It also expresses a concern over China's influence on American society and recommends banning the social network TikTok. It accuses it of espionage. And the Confucius Institutes, which accuses the corrupting of American higher education. The project also expresses concern over Chinese intellectual property theft and accuses big tech of acting on the behalf of the Chinese Communist Party to undermine the U.S. The American pension funds would be encouraged to avoid Chinese investments, and the American companies seeking to invest in sensitive sectors in China would face restrictions or denial of permission. Hold on, scrolling. Immigration reform. It suggests that abolishing the Department of Homeland Security, get rid of Homeland Security, and replace it with an immigration agency that incorporates the Custom Border Protection, the Transportation Security Administration, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. This, of course, does not include the presidential's wife and child, of course, that were immigrants, and elements of the Department of Health and Human Services and Justice. The other tasks would be privatized. The admission of refugees would be curtailed, and processing fees for asylum seekers would increase, something the project deems an opportunity for significant influx of money. This is purely for money. Immigrants who wish to have their applications fast-tracked would have to pay even more. In April 2024, Heritage said that the Project 2025 policy includes arresting, detaining, and removing immigration violators anywhere in the United States. A key architect of immigration policy during the Trump presidency is a major figure in Project 2025 and under consideration for a senior role in the second Trump administration. In November 2023, Miller told Project 2025 participant Charlie Kirk that the operation would rival the scale and complexity of building the Panama Canal. He said it would include deputizing the National Guard in red states as an immigration enforcement officers under Trump's command. These forces would then be deployed into blue states. Camps, people, camps. Think Germany, okay? Hitler. Okay, cool. Miller was considering deputizing local police and sheriffs for the undertaking, as well as the agents of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives and the Drug Enforcement Administration. He said that these forces would go around the country arresting illegal immigrants in large-scale raids who would be taken to large-scale staging grounds near the border, most likely in Texas, to be held in internment camps before deportation. Trump has also spoken of rounding up homeless people in blue cities and detaining them in camps as well. So not just immigrants, but homeless people, poor people. Anybody who does not have a home could be put into an internment camp, the same thing that happened during Hitler's reign. Funding for the border wall with Mexico would increase, which is great because they're taking all the money from Medicaid, Medicare, and food stamps to pay for that wall. Project 2025 encourages the president to withhold federal disaster relief funds granted by FEMA should the state or local governments refuse to abide by federal immigration laws, for example, by not sharing information with law enforcement. If your house is displaced by a flood or a hurricane or an earthquake, they can tell you to get fucked. Okay, so we're going to go to continue on. Let's see. We did the healthcare and public health. Let's see. Hold on. There's the nuclear race. There is foreign affairs. On the campaign trail, Trump has avoided any real specificity of foreign policy plans for a second term because he doesn't understand it. He considers China a major threat and is critical of any conciliatory move toward it. And preface Project 25 states for 30 years, America's political, economic, and cultural leaders embraced and enriched communist China with its genocidal communistic party while hollowing out America's industrial base.
Oh my God.
Let's see. Hold on. Personnel change. Project 2025 proposes reclassifying tens of thousands of federal civil service workers as political appointees in order to replace them with Trump loyalists who would be willing to bend or break protocol and in some cases violate laws to achieve his goals. It established a personnel database shaped by Trump's ideology. The project includes a questionnaire to screen potential recruits for their adherence to the project's agenda. Throughout his presidency, Trump was accused of removing people he'd considered disloyal regardless of their ideological conviction, such as former Attorney General William Barr. In the last year of his presidency, White House President official employees James Beacon and John McEntee developed a questionnaire to test potential government employees' commitment to Trumpism. Bacon and McEntee joined the project in May of 2023. The project recommends that a White House counsel to be selected who is deeply committed to the president's America's First agenda. Project 2025 is aligned with Trump's plans to fire more government employees than allocated to the president using Schedule F, a job classification Trump established in October 2020 executive order. Biden rescinded the classification in January of 21. Trump has said he would restore it. The Heritage Foundation plans to have 20,000 personnel in its database by the end of 2024. Voight said that the project's goal to remove federal workers would be a wrecking ball for the administrative state. As of 2024, only 4,000 government positions were deemed political opponents. That would change with each administration. Schedule F would affect tens of thousands of professional federal civil servants who have spent many years working under both Democratic and Republican administrations. It is vital to administrative functioning as the Republican Party increasingly views them as public sector union or threats or resources to be controlled. In February 2024, Kevin Roberts said people will lose their jobs. Hopefully their lives are able to flourish in spite of that. Buildings will be shut down. Hopefully they can be repurposed for private industry. Project 2025 encourages the U.S. Congress to require federal contractors to be 70% American citizens, ultimately raising the limit to 95%. And by June 2024, the American Accountability Foundation, a conservative opposition research organization led by former aide to Republican Senators Tom Jones, was researching certain high-ranking federal civil servants' backgrounds called Project 7 2025. The undertaking received a $100,000 grant from Heritage with the objective of posting names on a website of 100 people who opposed Trump's agenda. Announcing the grant in May of 2024, Heritage wrote that the research's purpose was to alert Congress, conservative administration, and the American people to the presence of anti-American bad actors brewed in the administrative state and ensure appropriate action is taken. Some found Project 7's 2025 reminiscent of McCarthyism, when many Americans were persecuted and blacklisted as an alleged communist. Political scientist has said that while the federal bureaucracy is in dire need of reform, Schedule F would be dangerously undermine the functionality of the government. By the way, the Heritage Foundation, which has backed this document, is actually a tax-exempt corporation that is religious, and by backing a political component can actually use its can lose its tax-exempt status if enough people complain. They are not by law allowed to put their hat into any type of political situation, and they are doing just that by backing this Project 2025. The expansion of presidential powers. This is where y'all better be scared. Expansion of presidential powers. The notion of independent federal agencies or federal employees who don't answer to the president violates the very foundation of our democratic republic. Project 2025 seeks to place the federal government's entire executive branch under direct presidential control, eliminating the independence of the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Federal Communication Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and other agencies. The plan is based on an interpretation of the unitary executive theory, arguing that Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution vests executive power solely in the president. We will become, by name and fact, a dictatorship. The president will have all control. Checks and balances will no longer matter. Authoritarianism. Project 2025 proposes that all Department of State employees and leadership roles will be dismissed by January 20th, 2025, the day the president sits his ass in a chair. All Department of State employees and leadership roles will be dismissed. It calls for installing senior State Department leaders in acting roles that do not require Senate confirmation. The guy who wrote the State Department chapter of Project 2025 ran the department's Office of Policy Planning for less than a year during the Trump administration before being forced out of the department. She considers most State Department employees too left-wing and wants them replaced by those more loyal to a conservative president. When asked by Peter Bergen in June 2024 if she could name a time when State Department employees obstructed Trump's policy, she said she could not. If Project 2025 were implemented, congressional approval would not be required for the sale of military equipment and ammunition to a foreign nation unless unanimous congressional support is guaranteed. Trump said that in a 2019 article that Article 2 of U.S. Constitution grants him, quote, the right to do whatever he wants as president, a common claim among supporters of unitary executive theory. Similarly, in 2018, Trump claimed that he could fire special counsel Robert Mueller. Trump is not the first president to consider policies related to the unitary executive theory, aka dictatorship. The idea has seen a resurgence and popularization within the Republican Party since the 9/11 terrorist attacks of 2001. In November of 2023, the Washington Post reported that deploying the military for domestic law and immigration enforcement under the Insurrection Act of 1807 would be an immediate priority for a second Trump administration. The aspect of that plan was being led by Jeffrey Clark, a contributor to the project and former official in Trump's Department of Justice. Clark is a senior fellow and Center for the Renewing America, a Project 2025 partner. The plan reportedly includes directing the DOJ to pursue those Trump considers disloyal or political adversaries. For his alleged acts while working at the DOJ during the end of Trump's term, Clark has become a Trump co-defendant in the Georgia election racketeering prosecution and an unnamed co-conspirator in the federal prosecution of Trump for the alleged election obstruction.
How do I do Yoda's food? And where's Little Man's food? These guys need to eat.
Give me a minute. I'll do it.
All right.
After the Post story was published, a Heritage spokeswoman said that Project 2025 contains no plans related to the Insurrection Act or targeting of political enemies. They reported that several Project 2025 partners praised the 2024 Supreme Court decision Trump v. United States, which grants broad immunity from persecution of acts committed in the course of a presidential official duties, which is part of the reason why some of the stuff is being thrown out right now, is because he was a president. He can do what he wants. In 2023, Marshall Hirsch wrote that little of Project 2025's agenda is likely to happen, citing conservative scholars and government experts who criticize its plans to reform the federal bureaucracy as comically naive, making the federal government a more incompetent, chaotic, and amateurish. This is just some of the stuff. If you guys want to read the rest of Project 2025, the entire manifesto is online. These are just some of the things. They also talk about the fact that they are going to destroy WIC and Medicaid and food stamps, destroy them, as well as childcare. So if you are a single mother and you require any type of food assistance, WIC assistance, there's things in there, which I have to go feed my dogs real quick. So I guess I'm going to have to come back. But if you require any type of financial assistance to feed or have any type of child care, they are working to completely demolish that. And to the point, there was, I'm going to have to find the particular portion talking about even removing children from single mother's care. So unfortunately, this is a really short live. I hope you guys have learned something. And know that, number one, misogyny is wrong. Number two, you guys need to actually do your due diligence. Go read parts of 2025. If you don't want to read the entire PDF, look up the Cliff Notes online. They're there. They're scary, and they will be our reality. If Trump does manage to get the seat, women are done. LGBTQ are done. People of color are done. They've already said that after the abortion pill, they are going after contraceptives. You will not be allowed to be on birth control anymore. Look it up. There will be no birth control. There will be no anti-abortion pill. After gay marriage, they've talked about going after interracial marriage. There will be no interracial marriage. What they want to do is to have purely, this is the same thing that Hitler did in the 40s. They want strict white marry white, blacks marry black. Everybody has to be Christian. There can be no LGBTQ. They are rounding people up in camps. If you do not understand the genocide and the problems that are going to occur, you can compare Project 2025 to things that Hitler has done. This is not me being an extremist. This is me doing fact. I will do more on this on another day. Other than that, I'm going to leave you guys with that. I want you guys to do some research. And I also want to give a shout out. If you haven't seen the movie Twisters, go see it. It was an amazing, amazing, amazing movie. I cried like 8 times. It was wonderfully done. The soundtrack was on point. The plot was great. I don't get to go to the movies very often, but I'm going to give a shout out. If you got to go see it. I will be back tomorrow, and I want you all to have a good night. Sorry for the informational dump. I want you guys to do some diligence. I want you to do some homework. I want you to go read what you got to read. Think about things. Really think about things if you are a woman, person of color, or LGBTQ, or love any of those people. Your rights are being taken. We're looking at Hitler's reign again. So have a good night, y'all.